You said. Sarah Coleman's hands trembled as she slid the pregnancy test across her executive desk toward Jake Matthews, her most talented employee and single father. I'm pregnant and the board is forcing me to step down unless I present them with a stable family situation by next week's shareholder meeting. Her voice cracked as 20 years of career building threatened to collapse around her. The company's archaic morality clause, a relic she'd never imagined would be weaponized against her, now jeopardized everything she'd sacrificed for. Jake stared at the test, his mind reeling. As her department's top performer, he depended on Sarah's leadership for his own career advancement he desperately needed to provide for his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, after his wife's death 3 years ago. They can't do that. It's discrimination, he managed, though. They both knew the reality. Hartwell Industries' founding family maintained controlling interest and their conservative values still governed executive conduct. Sarah's pregnancy, unmarried at 38, gave them the excuse they'd been waiting for to replace her with the CEO's nephew. The board meeting is in 6 days, Sarah whispered, her usually confident blue eyes now swimming with uncertainty. And there's something else you should know. She hesitated, twisting her platinum hair nervously around one finger. The father wants nothing to do with this child or me. I'm completely alone. Jake felt a strange protectiveness surge through him. Sarah had always been his champion at work, creating flexible arrangements when Emma was sick and mentoring him toward promotion. Now she looked nothing like the powerhouse who commanded boardrooms with effortless authority. What are you going to do? He asked, noticing how the morning light caught the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. I don't know, she admitted, vulnerability transforming her face. But I need to ask you something important. The company retreat starts tomorrow at Lake Geneva. Everyone expects me to bring a +1 to these events, and showing up alone now would only fuel the rumors. She took a deep breath. Don't let me go alone. Jake, please. The request hung between them, charged with implications neither was prepared to address. After an eternity of silence, Jake found himself asking, so where do I sleep? If you're enjoying this unexpected workplace drama, hit like and let me know in the comments if you've ever faced an impossible choice. Sarah's laugh, a genuine one that transformed her worried expression, caught him off guard. Separate rooms, Matthews. I'm not asking you to father my child, just to help me save face for a weekend. But something in her eyes suggested there was more to the request than professional survival. The next evening, Jake found himself in the passenger seat of Sarah's luxury SUV, heading toward the lakeside resort. Emma was safely with his parents for the weekend, though explaining his sudden plans had raised eyebrows he'd pointedly ignored. The awkward silence between them stretched until Sarah suddenly pulled onto a scenic overlook. Before we arrive, there's something you should know, she said, turning off the engine. The board doesn't just want me gone because I'm pregnant. They're using that as an excuse because I discovered financial irregularities in the CEO's nephew's division, the same nephew who wants my job. She pulled out a flash drive. This contains evidence of embezzlement that could send him to prison. If anything happens to me this weekend, promise you'll get this to the authorities. Jake's mouth went dry. Are you in danger? The stakes had suddenly escalated far beyond a pregnancy scandal. I don't know, she admitted, but someone broke into my apartment last night. Nothing was taken, but my files were searched. Her hand trembled slightly as she passed him the drive. I've never been so scared, Jake. Not even when I saw that positive pregnancy test. As the resort came into view, a sprawling luxury complex on the lake shore, Jake impulsively reached for her hand. I won't let anything happen to you, he promised, surprising himself with how much he meant it. The weekend began with a welcome reception where Jake watched Sarah transform back into the confident executive everyone respected. She introduced him as her partner with such natural ease that he almost believed himself. Her hand rested comfortably in his, her body angled toward him in a way that suggested intimacy. He found himself studying her when she wasn't looking. The graceful curve of her neck, the intelligence behind her smile, the protective way her hand occasionally drifted to her still flat stomach. This story is just getting started. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next when Sarah and Jake face their first major challenge together. Later that night, as they walked along the moonlight shore after dinner, Sarah suddenly stopped. Thank you for doing this. I know it's awkward. Less awkward than you might think, Jake admitted, surprising himself. Emma asks about you all the time, you know. She calls you Daddy's pretty boss lady. Sarah's laugh carried across the water. Smart kid takes after her father. She takes after her mother, Jake corrected, the familiar grief touching his voice. Melissa was the smart one, the brave one. Tell me about her, Sarah said, softly. And for the first time in 3 years, Jake found himself wanting to. They talked until midnight, sharing stories neither had told at work. Jake described Melissa's battle with cancer, the promises he'd made to her about Emma, the loneliness of single parenthood. Sarah revealed her own struggles growing up in foster care, fighting her way through business school, sacrificing relationships for career advancement, and now facing motherhood alone at 38. I never planned this, she confessed. But when it happened, I couldn't imagine any other choice. This baby is mine regardless of its father's disinterest. Jake found himself admiring her courage in a way he hadn't expected. When they finally returned to their rooms, adjacent suites with a connecting door, he hesitated at his doorway. If you need anything, I know where to find you, she finished with a smile that stayed with him long after he should have been asleep. The next morning brought the first crisis. During the executive breakfast, the CEO's nephew, Richard Hartwell, approached their table with a predatory smile. Sarah, the board's called an emergency video conference at 900, something about reviewing your department's performance metrics. His eyes flicked dismissively to Jake. Private meeting, executives only. After Richard left, Sarah's composure cracked. They're moving against me already? Those performance metrics are fabricated. I checked everything before we left. Jake leaned forward. Use my laptop for the call. I installed security software after my identity was stolen last year. It'll record everything without their knowledge. The meeting was worse than they'd anticipated. The board presented doctored financial reports showing Sarah's division underperforming. When she attempted to defend herself, the CEO smoothly mentioned emotional instability that might be affecting her judgment during this difficult personal time. If you're as outraged by this corporate manipulation as I am, hit like and share this story with someone who's faced workplace discrimination. When the call ended, Sarah was shaking with fury. They're building a case to fire me for cause. If they succeed, I lose my stock options, my health care, everything. We have it recorded, Jake reminded her. But we need more evidence of Richard's embezzlement to counterattack. His assistant might help, Sarah said, thoughtfully. Megan's been unhappy since he took over the division. She hinted once that she had concerns about his accounting practices. That afternoon, while Sarah participated in team-building exercises to maintain appearances, Jake made contact with Megan under the pretense of discussing cross-departmental projects. The young woman's nervousness was apparent immediately. I know what Richard's doing, Jake said quietly, both to the company and to Sarah. Megan glanced around anxiously before sliding a USB drive across the table. I've been documenting everything for months. He's been siphoning money to offshore accounts and blaming cost overruns on Sarah's division. Her voice dropped further. But be careful, he has connections you wouldn't believe. My apartment was broken into last week. Jake felt ice in his veins, just like Sarah's. That night, reviewing the files in Sarah's suite, they discovered the full extent of Richard's scheme and its dangerous implications. He hadn't just been embezzling. He'd been using company funds to pay off gambling debts to people who didn't accept excuses. This explains why he's so desperate to take your position. Jake said he needs control of your division's budget to cover his tracks before these people come collecting. Sarah's face had gone pale. Jake, these aren't just businessmen he owes. These are dangerous people. A sharp knock at the door made them both jump. Jake quickly closed the laptop and moved to answer while Sarah hid the drives. When he opened the door, Richard stood there with 2 security guards. Evening room check, Richard announced with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. New security protocol. Since when? Jake challenged, blocking the doorway. Since valuable company property went missing this afternoon, Richard replied smoothly. We're checking all rooms. The tension is building. Comment below with what you think Jake should do next. Jake's mind raced. If they found the drives, everything would be lost. You'll need a warrant, he bluffed. Sarah's personal suite isn't company property. Richard's smile hardened. Company retreat. Company rules, step aside, Matthews. It's fine, Jake, Sarah called, appearing beside him. She'd changed into silk pajamas, her hair tousled as if she'd been in bed. She leaned against him with casual intimacy. We have nothing to hide. The search was thorough, but ultimately fruitless. Sarah had hidden the drives in her toiletry bag, the one place the male security guards were too uncomfortable to search thoroughly. After they left, Jake and Sarah stood in tense silence until they were certain the men were gone. They know we have something, Sarah whispered. We're not safe here. Jake made a decision. Pack your things. We're leaving tonight, Dal. They slipped out through the service entrance, taking Sarah's SUV on back roads away from the resort. Jake drove, while Sarah contacted the one person who might help, her mentor from business school, who now worked for the SEC. We need to get these files to her immediately, Sarah explained. She can launch an official investigation that even the Hardwell family can't stop. As the miles passed, a strange cal settled between them. The crisis had stripped away workplace hierarchies and social pretenses, leaving something more honest in their place. When Sarah fell asleep against his shoulder, Jake found himself wondering how he'd never noticed how perfectly she fit there. They reached a small lakeside cabin owned by Jake's family just before dawn. As the sun rose over the water, they transmitted the files to Sarah's mentor through a secure connection, then waited in exhausted silence for confirmation. What happens now? Jake asked as they sat on the dock, watching the morning mist rise from the lake. Best case, Richard goes to jail. The board apologizes and I keep my job, Sarah said. Worst case, we both get fired and have to start over. Jake found himself smiling. Starting over doesn't sound so bad. Sarah turned to him, morning light illuminating her face. Jake, I need to tell you something. When I asked you not to let me go alone to the retreat, it wasn't just about appearances. I've watched you with Emma, seen how you handle challenges, how you treat people. I've respected you for years, but lately, she hesitated. Lately I felt something more. Before Jake could respond, his phone rang. Sarah's mentor. The call was brief but definitive. The SEC was moving immediately on the evidence. Richard had already been detained trying to board a private plane. The board was cooperating fully to avoid charges themselves. It's over, Jake said as he ended the call. You won. Sarah's relief was palpable, but something else shadowed her expression. The pregnancy situation remains. The board may still have concerns about an unmarried CEO with a child. Let them, Jake said with sudden fierceness. You're the best thing that ever happened to that company. And if they can't see that, he took her hand. Emma and I will help you fight them. Sarah's eyes widened. Jake, you don't have to, I know. He interrupted. But I want to. Not because you're my boss, but because these past 2 days have shown me who you really are. And that's someone I'd like to know better, much better. The kiss that followed wasn't planned or expected, but it felt like the most natural conclusion to their unexpected journey. When they finally pulled apart, Sarah whispered against his lips, Don't let me go alone. Not just this weekend, but for what comes next. Jake smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in years. I won't. And as for where I sleep, I think we can figure that out together. 3 weeks later, Jake stood nervously in the hallway outside the Hartwell Industries boardroom. Inside, Sarah was presenting her case to remain as CEO despite her pregnancy. The company's stock had plummeted after Richard's arrest, and the board was desperate for stability, but old prejudices died hard. Jake checked his watch again, wondering how much longer the meeting would last. The boardroom doors suddenly burst open. Sarah emerged, her expression unreadable, as executives filed out behind her, avoiding eye contact. Well, Jake asked, his heart pounding. A slow smile spread across Sarah's face. They unanimously voted to keep me as CEO. Turns out exposing a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme makes them overlook certain moral concerns. She laughed, the sound bright with relief. Plus, I may have mentioned that the New York Times was very interested in writing about corporate discrimination against pregnant executives. Jake pulled her into a hug, not caring who saw. I knew you'd win them over. There's more, she whispered against his ear. They're promoting you to vice president of operations. Apparently your quick thinking and loyalty to the company impressed them. Jake pulled back, stunned. Are you serious? Isn't that a conflict of interest now that were gestured vaguely between them, still unsure how to define what they'd become? Dating. Sarah supplied with a teasing smile. The board suggested separate reporting lines. You'll report directly to the CO. Her expression softened. That is, if you want the job and if you want this. She gestured between them, mirroring his uncertainty. I want both, Jake said without hesitation. But there's someone else we need to consult. This story just keeps getting better. Like and subscribe to see how Emma reacts to her dad's new relationship. That evening, Jake paced nervously around his kitchen while Sarah sat at the table, her fingers tapping an anxious rhythm. Emma would be home from her grandparents any minute, and they'd agreed it was time to introduce Sarah properly, not as daddy's boss, but as someone important in their lives. The sound of a car door slamming sent Jake's anxiety skyrocketing. What if she doesn't like the idea of us together? He whispered. Sarah squeezed his hand. Then we take it slow. Emma comes first. Jake always. The front door burst open and Emma raced in, her backpack bouncing. She skidded to a stop when she saw Sarah, her eyes widening with curiosity. Emma, Jake began carefully. You remember Miss Coleman from my work? Emma nodded, solemnly studying Sarah with the intense focus only a 7-year-old could muster. You're the pretty boss lady. Sarah laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. That's me, but you can call me Sarah. Dad says you're having a baby, Emma stated matter-of-factly, her gaze dropping to Sarah's stomach. Jake choked. Emma, that was supposed to be private. It's okay, Sarah interrupted, smiling. Yes, Emma, I am having a baby in about 7 months. Emma considered this information carefully. Is that why you're at our house? Because you need help with the baby? Jake knelt beside his daughter. Sarah is here because she and I have become good friends, very good friends, and we wanted to know how you'd feel if she spent more time with us. Emma's brow furrowed in concentration. Like a girlfriend? Yes, Jake admitted, his heart hammering. Like a girlfriend. Emma turned to Sarah with sudden intensity. Do you make my dad happy? Because he was sad for a really long time after Mom went to heaven. Sarah's eyes glistened as she knelt to Emma's level. Your dad makes me very happy and I hope I make him happy too. But you know what? Your happiness is just as important to both of us. Emma considered this, then asked the question Jake had been dreading. Will you try to be my new mom? Sarah shook her head gently. No, Emma. Your mom will always be your mom, and she sounds like she was amazing. I would never try to replace her, but I would like to be your friend if that's okay with you. Emma studied Sarah's face for what felt like an eternity before pronouncing her verdict. Okay, but you have to come to my soccer game on Saturday, and you should know I'm really good at braiding hair. Sarah laughed, relief evident in her voice. I would love to come to your soccer game, and I could definitely use help with my hair sometimes. Later that night, after Emma had gone to bed, Jake and Sarah sat on the porch, swing the gentle creaking a soothing backdrop to their conversation. She's incredible, Sarah said softly. You've done an amazing job with her. Jake squeezed her hand. She likes you. The hair braiding offer is her highest form of approval. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, her voice thoughtful. I never imagined my life taking this turn. CEO pregnant and falling for a single dad all in the same month. Falling for Jake repeated, his heart skipping. Sarah looked up at him, vulnerability and certainty mingling in her eyes. Yes, falling for. Is that okay? Jake's answer was a gentle kiss that held all the promise of their unexpected beginning. 6 months later, Sarah stood at the podium during the Hartwell Industries annual shareholders meeting, her baby bump now prominently displayed beneath her tailored maternity suit. The company's stock had rebounded to record highs after the scandal, and her leadership had been credited with saving the company's reputation. As we close this fiscal year, she addressed the packed room. I want to thank everyone who stood by this company during challenging times, especially those who reminded us that our greatest asset isn't our bottom line, but our integrity. Her eyes found Jake in the audience, Emma beside him in a dress she'd picked specially for the occasion. The little girl gave an enthusiastic thumbs up that made several board members smile. After the meeting, as shareholders and executives mingled, Jake approached with Emma skipping alongside him. He carried a small velvet box that made Sarah's breath catch. We have something to ask you, Jake said, his voice steady despite the nervousness in his eyes. He knelt down, not just before Sarah but including Emma in their circle. Sarah Coleman. He began opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring. Emma, and I would like to know if you'd consider making our temporary arrangement a permanent one. Emma bounced excitedly. He means, will you marry us? I helped pick the ring because Dad said green matches your eyes. Sarah laughed through sudden tears, looking from Jake to Emma and back again. Are you sure? Both of you. More sure than I've been about anything, Jake answered. Emma nodded solemnly. Plus, the baby needs a dad, and I already practiced being a big sister with my dolls. Sarah knelt down, bringing herself to Emma's level. In that case, yes, I would be honored to marry both of you. As Jake slipped the ring onto her finger, applause erupted around them. The board members, executives, and shareholders who had once questioned Sarah's fitness to lead now witnessed the formation of a family that defied their outdated expectations. Later, as they celebrated at home with ice cream sundaes, Emma's requirement for any proper celebration, Sarah rested her head on Jake's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for not letting me go alone that weekend." Jake smiled, watching Emma carefully arranged toppings on Sarah's sundae for the baby. "Best decision I ever made," he replied, "though I'm still not sure where I'm supposed to sleep." Sarah laughed, her eyes bright with happiness. "I think we figured that out just fine. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone special. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected circumstances. What's your unexpected love story? Tell me in the comments below. Asterisk.